Right. Matthew 25 is where we're going to spend much of our time for this second part of our morning. And I guess actually when you get to Matthew 25, go ahead and stick a finger there and turn to 1 Timothy chapter 6. If you wouldn't mind, I've got another set of slides there. It's titled Lesson 3. I will put you in charge of many things. Thank you very much. We've already looked at several warnings around money from God's Word. And I want to start with a very appropriate warning from Scripture that is especially applicable in a discussion around investing. So, 1 Timothy chapter 6. We read 6 through 8 last night, and we're going to read 9 and 10 this morning. It says, "But those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a snare, and many foolish and harmful desires which plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all sorts of evil. And some, by longing for it, have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." What's the desire that's listed here? He says, those who want to get rich. When getting rich is the goal, oftentimes the motivation for that is selfish reasons. And Paul describes treating money like an idol when he talks about the love of money being the root of all sorts of evil. Remember, we discussed from last night, money is a tool. Money in and of itself is amoral. It's not immoral, it's not moral, it's just a thing. It's in and of itself, it is not wrong. It is a tool. But the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. And some people eager for money have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. I'd like for you to consider with me a different warning in Scripture. James chapter 3 and verse 1 says, "Let not many of you become teachers, my brethren, knowing that as such we will incur a stricter judgment. I know many through the years, because of this fear of a love of money, have shunned money and principles of money, fearing that was the wickedness in and of itself. And what if every man across the country shied away from teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ because of James 3:1 and this particular warning? Let not many of you become teachers, knowing that as such we will incur a stricter judgment." A warning doesn't always mean something is evil, or that you must or even should stay away from it. But it is certainly a caution. Absolutely something that should not be taken lightly. Absolutely should be handled with care. Teaching is not something to be flippant about. There are dangers when you take on this authoritative role. Many a preacher and teacher through the years have allowed pride to get in their way. When you teach, do it prayerfully, do it with right motives, and do it soberly. And now let's do the same thing with money. Let's be prayerful, let's have the right motives, and let's be sober-minded. So turn with me to this familiar parable in Matthew 25. This is the parable of the talents. God calls us to be good stewards of everything He gives us. Money is no different, and He expects us to multiply His blessings according to our abilities within the times and the framework of where we live. Matthew 25, verse 14. "For it is just like a man about to go on a journey who called his own slaves and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability, and he went on his journey. Immediately, the one who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and gained 5 more talents. And in the same manner, the one who received the 2 talents gained 2 more. But he who received the 1 talent went away and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Our most common application of this text is talents. We use that old money term and impose our current English word. And that's not a bad application. That's a perfectly appropriate application to these principles. But so that we don't get too distracted with the word talent, we're going to change it for the purposes of our discussion to be according to the actual monetary figures of its day. So 1 talent was equal to 6,000 drachmas. Drachmas is not as familiar to us as denarii. Denarii we've heard much more frequently in other parables of Jesus and stories of the Gospels. And many Bible students know that already a denarius is a day's wage for the common day laborer. So 6,000 drachmas, 6,000 denarii. And again, 1 drachma or 1 denarius was a day's wage for the average day laborer. So 1 talent, 6,000 drachmas, for that day laborer would be approximately 20 years. If you do the math and you subtract out, if you assume a 6-day-a-week work week, because they didn't work on the Sabbath, a 40-hour, 5-day-a-week, by the way, it's an American thing. That was not a thing of the Jews. They worked 6 days a week. And there were several feast days that didn't necessarily fall on a Saturday that they would also not have worked. So if you subtract out some days, you come out with about 20 years worth of income. Would have been 1 talent. So what if you were given 20 years worth of income right now? For a day laborer, that would have been the equivalent of that 1 talent. And in today's terminology, that might be around $30,000 a year. You don't need to raise your hand. But anybody who in here makes around $30,000 a year, just put yourself right now in that 1 talent shoe. Okay? So 2 talents would have been approximately $60,000 a year to be that same 20 years worth of income. Because not everybody in the days of Jesus was a day laborer. Some people made more money than that. Just like in today's time, not everybody makes the income of a day laborer. Some people will make more money than that. And a conservative number puts the talent, I've already got it on the screen for you, at around $600,000. So 2 talent man would have had approximately $60,000 a year of 20 years worth of income, or $1.2 million. So that 5 talent man, for my math people in the room, you've already probably gotten there, $150,000 a year of an income at 20 years worth of income, or that sum of money would have been, in today's dollars, conservatively, around $3 million. Now, please don't start thinking about how much money you need for retirement. Those are very important thoughts to plan for, but let's not go there right this immediate moment. The 5 talent servant was given the equivalent of 20 years worth of wages for somebody that would have had 5 times the standard of living of a day laborer. And then he doubled it. Immediately, we read. I would suggest to you it didn't happen immediately. He immediately went, but investing takes time. Now, why didn't Jesus tell us how to do that? Why didn't Jesus tell us how to double our money? Well, that wasn't the point of the parable. And investing in his day doesn't necessarily look like investing in our day. Investing changes from economy to economy, and it changes from age to age. But the principles that Jesus said then are important for us to remember today. And I've already alluded to the first one of those principles. Verse 16, immediately the one who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them. The word diligent isn't there, but that's the idea. The word diligent actually comes from a Greek word that means to obey quickly. So immediately he went and did his master's bidding. Now I recognize for those of you who are in the room who are not 25 years old and above, or who are not 25 and below, if you are 25 and above, we're already past that immediate time frame that is most effective when it comes to investing for our future. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean you can't still good things with money. But quickly, this is especially for those who are younger in here. Quickly, in a hurry, it's a good thing to get started investing your money because it takes time. So immediately, it says, they were diligent. There was a pep in their step. They didn't waste any time in trying to please their master. In my line of work, I routinely have someone make the comparison between investing, the stock market, and gambling. I don't know exactly where that came from. I like to blame it on the game of life. Anybody remember the game of life? Do you remember how you played the stock market? I'll put that in air quotes. You took your dollar bill or your 10 or your 20 or your 100 or whatever it was, and you put it on 3 numbers, and then you spin a wheel, and if your number got chosen, well, then you doubled your money. That's gambling. That's not investing. But the game of life gave us really a false idea of what investing looks like from a very early age. Gambling and investing, they both involve money. They both involve risk, but the similarities stop there. Do you get the idea that that 5-talent man was chosen for his ability to sit at the blackjack table? Or that 5-talent man was chosen for his ability to sit at a slot machine? Investing is work. So our first principle that we'll talk about this morning, investing takes time. This is our map where we're headed today. And the master expected a return. That's what we'll be walking through this morning. So investing is work. We already looked at Matthew 25 and 16 together and referenced it in this concept that they immediately went to work and did things with this money. Generally, when you invest, you are taking ownership in something that you expect either to increase in value or to pay you an interest rate. In Jesus' day, that might have been buying some land and hiring some laborers to work the field and bring in crops. It might have been buying some animals and expectation that they would provide milk or wool and hopefully have babies to provide some more milk or wool. Maybe they would buy a ship and send it on a voyage to bring back goods to trade and to sell. Investing is work. Even if the one doing the investing isn't actually doing the work themselves. Hence the stock market idea, bond market idea. Even if the one who is doing the investing isn't actually doing the work themselves, it is still based on principles of work that is taking place. There's a reason why the 1-talent man was scared. Investing is not free of risk. What if the animals he bought got sick and died? What if hail or disease or drought comes to crops? What if the business failed back then, just like businesses can fail today? What if the ship ran aground and all the cargo was lost? Investing is work, and investing involves risk. It's very comfortable as an employee of a company to go to work and get a paycheck. The business owner makes more money than the employee for a reason, because the business owner doesn't always get a paycheck. When you own something, it involves risk. Entrepreneurship in America is possible and thriving. We actually mentioned that in one of tomorrow's lessons. But what if that 5-talent man took all 5 talents and he got a hot tip about a sure thing that would double his money in just a matter of weeks? Then he could just take a vacation till the master got back. And he took all the master's money and he invested in that. I hope everyone in here recognizes the foolishness of that decision. And a principle of investing, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If you are promised exorbitant rates of return, and I say this now as a caution, because I've talked to too many people in my lifetime who were promised, let me throw that word in there, promised, guaranteed rates of return that are, for the day, did not make sense. Now I say for the day, because right now if somebody promised you an 18% return in today's low interest rate environment, that would seem too good to be true. Anybody get a mortgage back in the 70s and had a house mortgage that was 12, 14%? Back in those days, if somebody promised you an 18% return, you could honestly get that on a government bond. So don't take 18% as this gospel thing. Recognize what time and cycle you might be in and what's going around. But if somebody promises you an above average rate of return and guarantees it, that's a red flag. This guy, if he had this hot tip because he was trying to make things happen as quickly as they possibly could, that is a sure way to get burned and to get hurt. Diversification is an important principle in investing. This is where you invest in different things so that if any one of them fails, because remember, investing involves risk, you didn't have all of your eggs in one so-called basket. Diversification spreads out your risk so that you don't lose everything, even when hard times hit. I didn't say if. Even when hard times hit, diversification helps you ensure that everything does not get lost. We already talked about more passive ways in today's time to invest your money that don't require necessarily getting out there with your hands in the trenches particularly. And what I do for a living has mostly to do with stocks and bonds, but there's also real estate, whether that be commercial or residential or farmland, commodities, precious metals, currencies, a host of other financial instruments. One thing to highlight, though, about this parable, and an important principle that took place in this parable, is the master entrusted these items to servants according to their ability. When it comes to investing, if you don't understand what you're investing in, you've got to do your research, or you need someone who knows what they're doing to help you. Because investing involves risk, and when you don't understand the risk you're taking, you can easily make bad judgments about what to do with hard times. Proverbs 28, I had it up on the screen. We'll look at it now together. In verse 19 says, "He who tills his land will have plenty of food," working, investing. "But he who follows empty pursuits will have poverty in plenty. A faithful man will abound with blessings, but he who makes haste to be rich will not go unpunished." This gentleman tilled his land, and I mentioned earlier entrepreneurship. That is one method of investing. When you are owning a company personally and running that company, that is certainly one method of investing. And when you follow empty pursuits, it brings poverty. Get rich schemes, get rich quick schemes have ruined so many people and their finances. The second part of that proverb, the second verse says, "A faithful man will abound with blessings, but he who makes haste," we already talked about hastiness this morning, "he who makes haste to be rich will not go unpunished." I had a client one time who kept trying to score it big. He was later in life. He hadn't really saved like he needed to save. And he was feeling the crunch, the squeeze. So a word of caution. If you're in this room and you're a little older and you don't have the savings that you would like to have, that is an easy time to fall prey to scams. This particular gentleman made some money in one of these scams that he had become a part of, not knowing it was a scam. It turned out to be illegal, and he didn't know about that until the cops showed up on his front door. They didn't prosecute him because he was innocent of wrongdoing. He didn't know that the company that he was doing business with was doing things illegally. But he had to pay back all the earnings that he had made from that company, which he didn't have anymore. If something sounds too good to be true, red flags and warning bells need to be going off in our head. Investing is work. There is risk involved. And investing also takes time. The second principle that we see from the parable of the talents, we see immediately they went and did work. What does verse 19 say? Verse 19 says, now after a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with him. Investing takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. We read earlier about dishonest money that dwindles away. Whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow, from Proverbs chapter 13. When you first start investing, it's kind of like watching paint dry. It's boring. Your first $100 is now worth $102. 2% increase in a short amount of time is actually kind of a big deal. But 102, when I started with 100, is not all that exciting. When you first start investing, it's not a lot of fun. You don't get to see exciting things happen quickly. But if you'll just gather little by little and leave it alone, it will grow. On the first backpacking trip I ever went on, the advice of a retired Marine was shared. He said, when you're adding things to your pack, remember, ounces make pounds. Okay, what does that mean, Mr. Retired Marine? Yes, I know ounces make pounds. When you tell yourself, oh, it doesn't weigh very much, I'm going to add it to my pack. Oh, it doesn't weigh very much, and I add it to my pack. Oh, it'd be really nice to have those cards at the top of the mountain. It doesn't weigh very much, I'll just add it to my pack. But when you do that again and again and again and again and again, ounces make pounds. Eventually, that's a 40-pound pack, and you were hoping to do 25. That's kind of a problem, especially if you're a new guy who's never gone backpacking before. And you probably shouldn't have been backpacking, but you were with some really good brothers who helped you out. Ounces make pounds. When it comes to finances, the same principle is true on both the budget side and also on the investing side. Cents make dollars. Dollars make tens of dollars. Tens of dollars make hundreds of dollars. Hundreds of dollars make thousands of dollars. It all adds up. Either negatively on the debt side or positively on the investing side. Don't tell yourself it's only a cup of coffee, it doesn't matter compared to all of my debt, or it's only $40, there's no reason to invest that. That'll never help me get to the $1 million that I need for retirement. Investing takes time. Remember that rule of 42 we talked about earlier? 72, thank you. Thank you. Oh, I had some good listeners. See, I was testing you to see if you were paying attention. Rule that 72 we talked about earlier. Time is your greatest friend. And I actually have a slide up here later about the rule of 72 again that I should have taken out that statement and added it later. Time is your greatest friend when it comes to compound interest. Time is also your greatest friend when it comes to that necessary risk that is involved with investing and making back losses when they occur. You're going to make mistakes in investing. It's going to happen. Something will seem like a good idea, You weren't hasty in your decision. You thought about it. You were well researched. And yet something didn't turn out the way it should. Time is your best friend when you are young. That doesn't mean you can't take risk when you're older. But it does mean you need to be even more prudent in the type of risk that you take. But the master still expects a return. This very last application comes naturally with physical talents that we talk about, our skills and our abilities and our ability to lead singing or to preach or to teach Bible classes or to share my table. We're very comfortable using that application, but the master expects a return. When it comes to physical things like money, now that gets less comfortable. But I would argue that the master still expects a return on the physical possessions that he entrusts to his servants. And those physical possessions that he blessed these servants with were a testing ground. Remember the title of our lesson at the beginning? I will put you in charge of many things. It's a testing ground to see if you're worthy to be given more responsibility. He expects a return. Verse 21. Let's read together. His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joys of your master." The one who received the 2 talents came up and said, "Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have gained 2 more." And his master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." There is no surprise in the master's voice. They were good and faithful. He entrusted according to their ability, and they returned to him. And now you can do even more. Enter into the joy of your master. This third servant we've already made reference to was afraid of risk. He was afraid of the master. And so he went and he buried the money in the ground. He was not a good steward. He did not meet his master's expectations. The master knew his ability. There was a reason why he was only given 1 talent, not 5. But the master still expected a return. Verse 26, his master answered and said to him, "You wicked and lazy slave, you knew that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I scattered no seed. You ought to have at least put my money in the bank, and on my arrival I would have received my money back with interest. Therefore take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. The third one had his talent taken away, and rather than entering into joy, he entered into misery." The parable of the talent teaches us that God expects us, calls us to be good stewards of everything that he gives us, and money is no different. He expects us to multiply our blessings that he gives us according to our abilities within the times and the framework of where we live. So now, how about you? What are you doing with the blessings that the master has entrusted to you? We've talked about it again. Hopefully you'll be able to repeat it with me by the time that our series together is over. When we earn the money that God allows us to earn, we give to God first. We save up for the future. We provide for our family's needs. We give to the poor. We share with others, and then we enjoy God's blessings. And you're doing all of those things, but you're still not investing your savings for the future. Our parable would tell you this morning that you are limiting what God can do through you. God can do much through you, and you're limiting what God can do if you're not investing and getting a return on the things that he has done for you. I mentioned that rule of 72 earlier. If we're sitting in a checking account or a savings account that's earning 1%, this is easy math. 72 divided by 1, anything but divided by 1 is itself. So if we're earning a 1% interest in our savings account, and that's what we're doing with all of our money. I'm not trying to say that we can't have money in savings or checking. It's important to have access to funds you need. But if that's all we're doing with all of our money, money doubles every 72 years. At a 3% interest rate, maybe a CD right now is earning around a 3% rate or so. Money doubles every 24 years. At a 6% interest rate, money is doubling now every 12 years. And for those who have done any study of the stock market, the long-term average of the S&P 500, which is an index that you can invest in very inexpensively or cheaply, 9% interest has been the long-term return of the S&P 500. Money doubles now every 8 years. So for the benefit of those of us who are in the room who are younger in life, we've got some more math for you. Oh, I forgot about this last one. 12% interest. Somebody mentioned to me earlier they love Dave Ramsey. I don't want to tear down Dave Ramsey at all. I do have a bone to pick with him, though, because in one of his older books, he talks about stock market investing averaging a 12% rate of return. That isn't true anymore after the great financial crisis. 9% now is the long-term average of the S&P 500. But it still is true that there are some growth-oriented type mutual funds that have continued to average a 12% rate of return. That does exist. I never do any planning for people at those kinds of rates. But at an average of a 12% rate of return, money doubles every 6 years. Things can happen very quickly when your money is working for you. So for those of us that are younger in the room, maybe we're 22 years old and we got our first job and we got a signing bonus. That does exist. One of my earliest clients, graduated from the school in Lubbock, Texas Tech. He was in the oil worker, not oil worker, but he was an oil engineer, chemical engineer, and he received a $10,000 signing bonus. And he came down to my office and he invested that money with me. Or what if great-great-grandmother that you never met, or great-great-aunt or uncle that you never met, passes away and leaves you $10,000. And you've got the ability to not spend it, set it aside, and to let it grow for you. At age 22 years old, that $10,000 is just $10,000. But by the age of 30, 10 has turned into 20. At the rule of 72, at a doubling of a 9% interest rate. By the age of 38, that 20 has turned into 40, 46, 80,000, 54, 160,000, 62, 320,000. And if you don't retire early and you wait until 70 to draw that Social Security check, by age 70, it is worth $640,000. Compounding of interest is a powerful thing when you have time on your side. And you can be diligent and you can be prudent and you can let it work for you. But we end with the warning that we started with. That's all great, Jamie. We end with the warning we started with. What's my goal in investing? Those who want to get rich can fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires. Remember those get-rich-quick schemes we talked about? Or I'm older and I feel like I need to hurry up and make up lost time. We can fall into foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. And some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many grief. We've talked about a lot of principles this morning that are rooted in Scripture from the Creator of all things. We cannot ignore physical boundaries and times and limitations that were set in motion by the Creator. And we have to work within those time frames and work within those examples. And using our example from Matthew 25, Jesus tells us that the blessings that are given to us freely, that are entrusted into our care, God expects us to use those blessings for His glory, for His good, for His kingdom. And He does expect us to have a return. We're We're going to close this evening with just a brief statement around the gospel. We don't want to leave this morning without the ability for someone to make their life right with the Lord if they're in a spot where they have fallen away, or if you have not yet put on Christ and it's your desire to be baptized and to become a child of His. We invite you to do that now as we stand and as we sing.